Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel, and I'm on the way to speak to Sunderland head coach Régis Le Bris to preview the Black Cats fixture at the Stadium of Light on Sunday afternoon against relegation threatened Tottenham Hotspur. Should be an interesting game, this one, in my opinion. Now, first things first, I need a haircut, but that is perhaps for another time. Secondly though, what are we thinking in terms of what we should ask Régis Le Bris today? Well, I think in terms of the newsy headlines regarding injuries, other people may ask him whether Dan Ballard perhaps is back, whether Robin Roofs is back, and how fit are the likes of Norton McKeely and Enzo Lefebvre after they, of course, I think Lefebvre only made a cameo, if I remember rightly, back in the derby in the last match. But my plan is to ask him about the summer. Now, that's not just because the weather's started to get a little bit nicer outside, even though it's been very nice, but more so because Sunderland are in this little group in the middle of the Premier League table at the moment, aren't they? With the likes of Everton, Newcastle, Bournemouth, Brentford, Fulham, all of whom could either finish 12th or could finish 7th or 8th, maybe even 6th, and qualify for some form of European competition. Now, as a result of that, Sunderland's summer, and the clubs around them as well, could be very different depending on where they finish in the Premier League at the end of the season in May. It will certainly set about who they can plan to bring into the club in terms of the money and the revenue they might get from the European competition, and also what type of player might want to come to the club as well. Now, of course, wages are a big factor in that, and some clubs will be able to pay more wages than, say, Sunderland, for example, even if Sunderland got into Europe. But even so, that to the side, the appeal of Europe would still be very big for Sunderland if they got there. Now, Sunderland are, of course, a club who have never played a lot of games in Europe. I believe the only European fixtures they've really played are as a result of them winning the FA Cup in 1973 and then qualifying for the Cup Winners' Cup competition, which, of course, now no longer exists. But as I say, there is a distinct possibility that Sunderland or one of those clubs around them could qualify. So, with that being said, will Sunderland's league position determine what is possible come the summer in terms of Sunderland's transfer strategy and policy? That is what I'm going to ask Régis Le Bris today. Of course, we'll have a little bit of a look towards Tottenham itself and the game in terms of where Sunderland are at after the derby and just what the morale and the mood was like following such an important victory in terms of not just Sunderland's season, but of course the mood of the city and the region. But I think my main point is certainly looking towards the summer at the moment, and perhaps that has been inspired by the fact that the weather is suddenly looking a lot nicer outside. We are coming into mid-April and it's really quite nice. But that is what I plan to ask Régis Le Bris today, and hopefully he gives a good enough answer. So, shan't be long then until we reach the Academy of Light, where, of course, Le Bris holds his pre-match press conferences. So please do continue to watch this video to see exactly what the outcome was, and also stay tuned to all of my social medias, and of course to Northeast Football TV, where the video and articles will be going out as well with exactly what happened in that press conference. But we're nearly at the Academy of Light now, so I will come back to you once the press conference has finished to see exactly what Régis Le Bris says, and also direct you and guide you towards the articles and the videos that will come out of the press conference that I will have compiled and put together. So please do stay tuned. Well, there we are, press conference over. Régis Le Bris has spoken ahead of Sunderland's fixture against Tottenham Hotspur. The main headlines, well, Dan Ballard, he won't make this game. Still not quite there in terms of his recovery from a hamstring injury that he picked up prior to the international break. Le Bris also had kind words for Chris Rigg in terms of the role and the momentum he's had in recent weeks as well. And of course, also, Le Bris was asked about Roberto De Zerbi given that he's Tottenham's new manager, head coach, in terms of what that might change in terms of Sunderland's preparation, because of course now it's a bit of an unknown for Sunderland. So how that might pan out. My questions, as we discussed earlier, were about the summer transfer window. Now, my first question was regarding what competition Sunderland may or may not be in next season, and would that help to determine what Sunderland can or cannot do in the summer transfer window. And he said it's a little bit too early to look at the summer transfer window, but that things are of course going on in the background, and of course they are, there's always planning going on. So then the next question I asked was, well, okay, let's have a look at the injuries you've had in recent weeks. Has that helped to determine the types of player or the positions of the player that you might want to bring in? And he said yes, probably. So clearly, if we look at the injuries that Sunderland have had in recent weeks, you know, obviously Brian Robbie was out for a little while, so do they want another striker? Probably is the answer. I think so, because let's be honest, Le Bris hasn't been too keen on playing Wilson Isidore too much. Even Elise Mienda has had limited minutes and is of course a bit younger as well, so I think probably he's certainly the first choice pick. But I think Sunderland certainly will want another striker, whether it's another first choice starter or someone to play behind Brian Robbie in terms of the pecking order. Either way, Sunderland, no matter what competition they're in next season, will want another striker. Now they have of course had an injury to Robert Roofs, and they've brought in Melker Elborg. So, to that note though, Robert Roofs has had a very good season, and I have no doubt he'll have potential suitors in the summer. So you've got Elborg, but do you potentially, given the fact that you've had the injury to Robert Roofs and there may be potential suitors for him, have to look at another goalkeeper? That perhaps depends on what competition Sunderland are in, what competition Sunderland are in next season, as to whether someone as good as Robert Roofs, who clearly is a fantastic goalkeeper, as to whether he stays. So I think that's an interesting dynamic there. I think there is certainly something in the whole whether Sunderland are in Europe or not next season. Le Bris was quite guarded on that, but I think certainly there will be, and that's perhaps how I'll look at in terms of framing the article that I write. I'll have to sort of, you know, look about that, and in terms of what actually did he say, I'll have to certainly look back at exactly what he said. I'm just going at the moment off the top of my head in terms of what I can remember exactly what he said, but when I listened back to the audio and the video to see exactly how he went about that, answering that question, certainly he did say it was perhaps a little bit too close to look exactly at the transfer window, but it is coming, and there's no doubt about it. I think he was more wanted to point out that there are 7 games still to play, and that, you know, Sunderland's have got to do what they can in these games, and then we'll look. But that to me does actually suggest that, okay, the summer transfer window is perhaps a little bit more dependent on what happens in these next 7 games in terms of who Sunderland will have to look at and what type of player they'll have to look at. And I think the injuries in terms of what they've had this season also is a factor. I think they're the 2 factors. Obviously, then you have to come in and look at the wages as well in terms of what Sunderland can actually do and who they can attract to the club. But I do think the competitions they're in and some of the injuries and some of the players who have fallen out of favour as well this season, that will all determine what Sunderland can do in this coming transfer window and what strategy and policy that they will look to employ. So that is it in terms of Régis Le Bris from today. I think overall, just judging by his mood, things are very good at Sunderland at the moment. He was also asked about the mood after the derby and the dressing room, as he has been a lot this season just because of how well Sunderland have done. And again, the answer's relatively similar to what he's always said, just how unified things are and just how important, of course, the derby win was as well, in terms of confidence and just joy for the city and morale as well. I mean, there was already pretty good morale because Sunderland had achieved their aim, and he did make that clear as well, that Sunderland have achieved their aim for this season, which was essentially to stay up. Now it's a case of what else can be done, but the main objective has been completed, and to that end, well, the morale and the togetherness is all fantastic. So Sunderland are in a good place at the moment. It's just now a case of what they can achieve in these 7 games, and hopefully from their point of view the derby win can inspire them on to more. But it's just a case of also whether they think, well, okay, are they on the beach a little bit now because they've not only are they safe but they've beaten Newcastle twice, what else can they achieve? But then you have to look at the table and the fact that they are just a few points from Europe. So there's a lot to think about in terms of Sunderland at the moment. And doubtless more will become apparent in terms of how Sunderland play on Sunday and how they play in the games to come after that as well. In terms of the mood around the club come the summer, and then how the transfer window goes and Le Bris and all the rest of it as well. So there's a lot to still judge Sunderland in terms of Sunderland as well. But that is where we are heading into Tottenham at the weekend. I think it'll be an interesting game. Certainly it is a bit of an unknown, which Le Bris pointed out, because you've got De Zerbi coming in, who can he inspire Tottenham into better form, given just how poor and shambolic they've been of late, and can he help them avoid relegation? Well, we'll get a bit of an idea in this first game. Of course, he's only been in there not very, like, sort of a handful of days. Sorry, I'm just trying to let a car in here, but no, they couldn't make it in, never mind. But yes, in terms of where Tottenham are in this game, in terms of how much of an impact De Zerbi has had at this point, so we'll get a bit of an insight into that. I think Sunderland will be disappointed given just where Tottenham are if they don't get anything from the game. I think that's pretty apparent. And then it's a case of, if they do get something from the game, do they get a draw? How good are Tottenham? Or can Sunderland go and get another 3 points? All to be seen on Sunday. But we'll be there on Sunday to look exactly what happens with Le Bris, Sunderland versus Tottenham. And of course, we'll be vlogging that game as well and providing it here on this YouTube channel. But until then, thank you all very much for watching for this mini press conference vlog. We'll be back on Sunday to see how Sunderland get on against Tottenham at the Stadium of Light. But in the meantime, please do stay tuned to my socials at DanielWales023 on X and on Instagram, Daniel Wales Journalist on TikTok, and of course here on YouTube as well, and Daniel Wales Journalist on Facebook too. And then please also, if you can, subscribe to North East Football TV on the internet, and of course social media, the same socials, North East Football TV for X, for Instagram, for YouTube, and for TikTok as well. But until then, thank you very much all for watching, and we will see you all next time.